Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Or good evening, depends on where you are in the world. My name is Vivien. I was up backstage early and I really enjoyed the conversation from the last panel. They've touched a lot upon the topic that I wanted to share today, which is on the consumer aspect, because I think the real world application really lies in the consumer application because we are all consumers. Every single one of us is a consumer. So how does the Web3 application technology apply to our everyday lives and in the real world? And I like to share my perspective on that. Let me see, I can move the slides. Great, so a little bit more about me. I came from the consumer space through and through. Previously, I spent 15 years working in luxury fashion, first in design and on the supply chain and production side, and then I moved into the business side, in merchandising and marketing. And I've worked on both in sort of mass market fashion to luxury fashion. More recently, I was at Tiffany and Harry Winston managing the jewelry, the merchandising and jewelry side of things. Prior to that, I was also a serial entrepreneur where I built businesses under large corporations umbrella, and also worked at startups where we generated revenue 10x during COVID over 2 years. So I've had a very thorough and comprehensive understanding of the luxury or the fashion industry and the consumer industry at large. So, and which led me to my business now, Solaire. So the birth of Solaire was sort of interesting because I've lived, sort of worked my way through the rise of Web2, and I was young at the time when at the rise of Web2, where I did not understand the potential impact of social media, and until 10 years later, fast forward, everything is now creator economy, social driven, which really opened my eyes to keep monitoring the evolution of technology and to think how it will impact the retail industry, the consumer sector. It will eventually impacting everyone's lives. So what we do, before actually we get into what Solaire does, we'd love to share more about my view on the technology evolution. I'm sure everyone on this chat or panel already knows this by heart, but I'd like to also touch slightly upon on these topics to just give my take. Obviously, Web 1 is informational. You only see what you're given. Number 2, you were able to share your opinion and also in return and have something in return. But the relationship is very transactional because you don't own the data. Your information or your content will be shared if there is value to the content, to the platform that allow you to share the content. And in return, you're bombarded with information that you did not ask for, essentially. In Web3, which I see it more of an enhanced internet, essentially, is that the data infrastructure of the internet is now being upgraded to blockchain. So there are a lot of byproducts of blockchain, NFTs, and everyone's talking about AI, but AI is essentially also part of Web3 because smart contract very much relies on AI. And then you have the metaverse, which is not entirely Web3, but there are elements of that could be relevant to Web3. So which lends to the word experiential, meaning that the world is not as lenient as that there are different separate tracks that you could sort of go after. Everything is now this one big world that it's like people have 5 senses. So you will be able to experience the web or the world digitally from multiple channels that will form into that one single channel of perception. So, and again, a lot of other speakers have touched upon what an NFT is. And to your point, that early use is very much creator driven, design driven. But now let's look at NFT on the technology level of what that really is. The real world application of NFT should really be behind the scenes, where the data is the NFT, not the face of the content. So your NFT could be your driver's license. You still will receive the driver's license as you see today, but because it's an NFT, it's on blockchain, people cannot, it will be much harder for them to steal your identity or nearly impossible. It will be harder for people to buy, buy a fake ID, because you can buy a hard copy, but how do you buy an NFT that doesn't exist? Same thing with degrees, with resumes, with a lot of things. So going back to where I come from, which is the world of consumer, is that your every single purchase, anything that you invest money on, should be delivered to you on the form of NFT. That not certifying that this item is one of a kind, but the item that you've bought that now belongs to you is one of a kind. And that's when the idea of using NFT as a blockchain receipt will become relevant. And I'll share more about that later. Wallet, also something that lots of people probably here know, but the wallet that we understand today is very much of a cryptocurrency wallet, maybe an NFT wallet, but where do you see the visuals? So it's very much still sort of a DeFi or a fintech product. The way coming from the consumer world, I think to achieve mass market adoption, it needs to be easy to use. It needs to be relevant. So something funny that I wanted to share. If people have seen Sex and the City, there was obviously Carrie Bradshaw famously said that I like to see all of my investments in front of me hanging in my closet, right? So you have a bank account for your savings, you have a crypto wallet for your cryptocurrency. Think of your purchases. They are one way or another a form of investment. Shouldn't you have that also in a digital format, whether you call it digital closet, digital vault, sort of my digital receipt booklet? It's basically a place where it houses all of your purchases and investments. That is also an asset. And all of that could be delivered to you in the form of an NFT that certifies its uniqueness on an item level and its uniqueness that it's now owned by you. So because there isn't really a wallet infrastructure that allows you to have that level of engagement with an NFT or any token essentially in your wallet that has the consumer features. So I quit my job to build this product because I believe in the future of this consumer wallet where there are a lot of other things that actually evolved that has been added into this wallet experience. But the very beginning, the concept of building a consumer wallet is a place for you to house, secure, and see and manage all of your physical assets that are now in the digital form that belongs to you. And then lastly, I'd like to also touch upon the concept of the consumer shift. Actually, think looking at this, it's very much of a Web 1 to 3 evolvement. So first you have the in-person shopping channel, which still exists today, but back in the days in the age of Web 1, that was the only way to shop. And then we move on to online, which is Web 2, where there is give and take. Anybody were given the power to start their own store, have their e-commerce. That was the early days, the early booming of the e-commerce days. And then now so that was Web 2. And then the later half of Web 2, where things became social, where you have a lot of consumer or creator driven shopping and commerce communities. So that is very much the evolution of Web 1, Web 1.5, and then Web 2. And now Web 3, we haven't really invented any sort of new channels. But what Web 3 is that all of these channels are merging into one, what we call an immersive commerce, whether it's in the form of a metaverse, a gaming environment, or a 3D, 2D environment. The idea is that now the physical world and the digital world are actually talking together. So these are some of the potential consumer applications using Web3, and there are a lot of them, and we can give a few examples of each one of them. Consumer experience, the most relevant, that's why the bubble is the biggest, is that there are so many things that are packed into this one item on a very sort of basic level. That the reason I started my company was when I was at Tiffany. I was in the high jewelry division, and I see, we have a lot of customers buying jewelry and investing in jewelry pieces. And soon I discovered people are not just buying the jewelry because they need another necklace, people are buying into the stories that is behind this piece of jewelry, whether it's the brand story, it's the design story, it's the craftsmanship, it's the origin of the gemstone, or it's the certification that certifies these gemstones. So Tiffany used to spend a lot of time putting the materials together and give them to the sales team, because that's what they need to use to sell that piece of jewelry. It's not just a necklace. Here you go. And then obviously after customer buying into that story, when they now own this piece of jewelry, they also want to own the story. And we used to actually have books that are printed to give to the customer. So I thought, why don't we digitize that? It will be much easier, much more efficient for customer to have. It's like now, and leveraging Web3 and blockchain, we can deliver that digital packet, that digital book in the form of NFT that certifies its authenticity, that allow you to have a more immersive storytelling experience, that will have all of the gemstone certificates that are now backed and verified on blockchain. And it will also certify your ownership, because that blockchain receipt and that NFT or the digital twin is delivered from the brand directly to you. So there is an added level of security for the ownership. So all of that is on the very basic level, is on the consumer experience. If you're buying a digital product, a physical product, it's no longer just a form of physical enjoyment. There is this digital level of enjoyment that you can have, which is product information, storytelling. And on top of that, the next layer is the digital extension. Say now, a lot of it's very popular now. If you have a physical jewelry, a physical necklace, you can have a few different versions in different games that you can wear. Your digital skin, it could be an AR filter that you can wear that can or doesn't have to be an NFT. So now you have an extension of the physical product that you can also enjoy in different environments. And then on top of that, there is this consumer experience of linking the in real life events with your purchase. Now, communicating and inviting customers, it becomes much, much easier, that you can have more product relevant and customer relevant content and be able to offer consumers the level of in-person experience that is hard to achieve prior to having that product customer relationship, prior to having that wallet relationship. Information transparency, we touched upon that a little bit earlier, is now chain of custody is clear. And especially so the early use of blockchain was very much in the supply chain area, where you can exactly see where everything comes from to verify the provenance of certain materials. It was a great initiative, but it did not go too far for two reasons. Number one is because it's sort of an added value. It doesn't really have a direct revenue generating capacity for the brands that are investing in it. And therefore, the adoption was slow. And at the same time, the information, even when you have it, it's not consumer facing ready, meaning that it's a long list of boring sort of log of activities. So now by funneling that information into the consumer wallet, we are giving brands and consumers a much more brand appropriate and consumer digestible way to see that where does everything come from, and how do the different stones and fabrics sewn together into the finished piece, and how that's delivered from the brand, from the store directly to me. So this is what we call tracing backwards. And there is the next element of tracing forward, is that now I have it, then what? Very rarely you buy something and you keep it for the rest of your life. A few things could happen here. You might be a gift giver. You bought it to give to someone. You could be, a reseller, where you just want to have the latest product and you wanted to resell it in a bit. Or maybe it's an item that that has an end of life cycle, where it's time, it's the end of life. How do I help to recycle it or discard it? So all of these information are now you will be able to track and trace that. One biggest advantage that we have is that in resale, which is a huge sticking point for a lot of brands, particularly luxury brands, is that there is just no information transparency in the resale market. You could be buying something that is the 5th or 10th change of hand, but you would have no idea. Authenticity becomes an issue. So now leveraging this Web3 and blockchain technology and the consumer wallet technology, every product has an identity. So you have if the physical product is chipped with an NFC or QR code, you will be able to verify the identity of the physical product with the added layer of the ownership verification. If an item was on blockchain sold to customer A, and the chance of customer A reselling it and the product being authentic is much, much higher than you receiving the product from customer C who had no prior history with the brand. So even if it was gifted, there will be that change of ownership showing that it was gifted from customer A to customer C. So there is this information transparency that will really change the game for resale. And that's why you're seeing a lot of luxury brands are heavily investing in this space to make resale much more efficient. Consumer confidence, they come hand in hand. Once that technology, that infrastructure is in place, consumer becomes a lot more comfortable to, number one, invest in first-hand primary customer first-hand product, knowing that it will be much more easier for me to resell them or gift them in the future. And for customers that are buying in the secondary market, you know exactly where everything comes from. And you know that once you have it, it will also be easier for you to resell that or gift that in the future. So everything comes hand in hand, and you know exactly where the material come from. That's also another sticking point, that if you're buying something in the secondary market, the prior owner, you have questions about dry cleaning, about repairing, about seasonality of the product, or even just seeing what the product looks like. If there was, sort of a custom alteration happen, it will be very difficult for you to find those information. And now with the consumer wallet, everything lives in that NFT. The original product images, description, all of that. So it's like a walking or permanent product listing that will always live in that product, along with all the care instruction, so that even if you cut off the label, the material information and care instruction will always be there. Makes customers a lot more comfortable in owning, managing, and reselling and gifting these products that are out of season. Operational efficiency is probably something that people rarely talk about because it's not consumer facing. But think about this, that and I've seen a lot of use cases in this, and one of my good friends has a company that builds just that. And like, think about expense management. Anything that requires verification. In the past, you have to either trust the person that you're receiving the information from, or have a third party or multi-party verification process to make sure that the information you receive is accurate. And in the example of my friend's product, where they have an expense management product, or they do expense management as well as online sort of proposal bidding, where there are a lot of gray areas in the process, and there are a lot of stakeholders in this process. Now, leveraging blockchain, you only have a single version of fact of the truth. So it actually cuts down the overhead of requiring multiple parties, cuts down the time in terms of verifying the information, makes the process much more efficient, much more decentralized, and much more automated. Community, we've all touched upon that. Super easy to see. Sustainability, we're helping with, circularity, transparency, which is a great way to help with sustainability. So we've touched a lot upon what the consumer wallet does. So we're not trying to do everything, but what we want to do is to provide a platform to be the gathering place of information that will travel with the product from owner to owner, from wallet to wallet. And I want to end with this slide, is that what are the challenges to hit mass market adoption? I think that it all comes down to education. How do you learn more about this? And in order for the companies to adopt the technology so that consumers can start enjoying it and using it, how do you package the technology in a relevant format to the companies that you want them to use? Relevance and making it easy to use, break down all the barriers of adopting Web3 technology to reduce complexity, And also, it's a business after all for these companies to invest and adopt Web3. How do you build the business case of driving direct ROI? So then it's an investment with return instead of just a marketing spend. So thank you very much for having me. And I'm the founder of Solaire. If you're interested in learning more or just to pick my brain, be my sounding board on anything consumer Web3 application related, please feel free to contact me. Thank you.